to get the ball rolling, I'm just going to throw out a little scenario uh, and see if it sounds familiar to any of you. But basically, just picture this: you wake up, your alarm clock goes off. As you slowly get out of bed, you feel like you didn't sleep long enough. You're not refreshed. Your brain feels foggy and unclear, and you're chasing that first caffeine hit to feel like you can function throughout the day. Um, Pretty common scenario. I think most of us are pretty used to it. And we kind of start to normalize that and think like that's just a normal process of waking up and that's how sleep is supposed to feel. But uh, it's pretty impressive how good you can feel when you wake up energized, when you have good sleep hygiene habits as well. And just, I guess, the snowball effect and the positive outcomes you'll get from that throughout your day. And yeah, like I mentioned, fat loss, muscle growth, that I'm going to go into a little bit more detail soon here as well. But I guess also there's some really good data on sleep. And so Whoop, which is like a wearable tech company, they actually just released I guess, all their data. They surveyed their 100 best sleepers who averaged like a 96% sleep score, which is basically ridiculous. It just means like they're waking up energized the next day. They're going to bed and waking up at the exact same time. They're on a really good circadian rhythm and they're getting really good and adequate amounts of REM and deep sleep. So for these 100 best sleepers of Whoop, like that's pretty impressive. And they're doing something right. But I think what's really interesting about the data is of those 100 best sleepers, 66% of them drink some kind of caffeinated beverage each day. And almost all of them wake up to an alarm as well. So it's very similar to stuff we do. Most of us have a coffee, one or two, maybe three or four throughout the day, however many you have. Yeah, we're waking up with an alarm clock as well. So it's not what they're doing throughout their day that's actually benefiting their sleep quality. It's what they do when they're winding down. And so I think it's super powerful looking at all that because, like I said, I think people kind of idolize these, elite sleepers and go, oh, like they must be doing a million things throughout the day to maximize their sleep quality. And it's not the case. There's some pretty simple habits that they do that you can also do that will yield some really positive results. And I'll go through them in a little bit. But I guess to kind of give you a bit of background and my journey with sleep and why I'm so passionate about helping people with their sleep is because back in 2016, I was actually diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome as a complication of post-glandular fever. And it was probably an 18-month journey to get back to normal energy levels. And for those of you who don't know much about chronic fatigue syndrome, it affects a lot of people differently. But for me, it was unrefreshing sleep, migraines, hold on, let me just add someone's adding in. It was unrefreshing sleep, migraines, swollen lymph nodes, glands. Like I was always fighting off some form of infection because my immune system was just absolutely shot. I had no white blood cells to fight off infection. So it was a big journey. It was a 12-month journey to get back to working with all the specialists and get as cliche as it sounds, get my life back. But it was actually all the sleep hygiene and all the kind of sleep specialists that helped me understand what my brain and my body was doing throughout the day and how to wind down before bed in order to maximize my sleep quality each night. And then over that kind of probably 12-month journey, I was able to actually get my energy back, improve my immune system, reduce my adrenal fatigue. Like it just snowballed from there. It obviously took a really, really long time. But like I said, that's kind of why I'm so passionate about it, because when you first start to notice the refreshing sleep, I can't even explain how good it feels because you're so used to waking up with headaches, feeling unrefreshed, migraines, and you just start to think that that's kind of normal. And then once you realize how good you can feel, it's like this, it honestly feels like a superpower. So that's kind of my journey with it as well. And yeah, why I'm so passionate about it. So also just some quick little facts that I thought you guys might find interesting about sleep. Especially as we kind of start talking about fat loss and muscle growth. A single night of sleep deprivation can cause a reduction in muscle protein synthesis by 18%, which I found pretty interesting. But more importantly, 95% of human growth hormone is produced during deep sleep. So for those of you wondering what human growth hormone does, I'll just tell you what the deficiencies in human growth hormone can lead to. So it's increased body fat around the waist, which I think it's safe to say none of us want. reduced muscle mass, fatigue, depression, poor memory, poor bone density, like the list goes on. So it's obviously super important that our bodies are getting enough deep sleep every night to make sure that our human growth hormone regulation is optimal, because we don't want any of those symptoms of deficiency there. Yeah, and I guess kind of moving on from that as well, a question I get a lot, which I like answering, is, does sleep influence fat loss? The answer is yes, absolutely it does. Not getting enough adequate amounts of REM and deep sleep will cause like a negative hormonal cascading effect, which includes like excess production of ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, and like you won't feel full. It'll also decrease or suppress leptin, which is that kind of I'm full, I'm satiated hormone. So if you think about the snowballing effect from having too much ghrelin being pumped through your body and then not enough leptin, you're going to be, those cravings are just going to be absolutely overwhelming throughout the day. And then, maybe you're at work and that coworker offers you some Tim Tams and suddenly it gets really, really hard to say no because your body's just screaming for it. So when you talk about like what body comp goals and wanting to reduce body fat and visceral fat, like all these things kind of stem from maximizing your REM and deep sleep. Like they will play a really positive role once you can kind of start to rewire them and do the little habits that I'll talk about in a bit to help improve that as well. So then moving on from that, I guess talking about the importance of sleep and muscle growth. So something that I think a lot of people, myself included, when I first started like working out and training, is we don't realize that you don't actually get stronger at the gym when you're exercising. So your muscles break down while you're working out, and then they're built back up during deep sleep. So therefore, getting enough deep sleep is essential for maximizing potential gains from your training. So then additionally, like deep sleep stage helps strengthen your immune system, which I learned with the chronic fatigue as well, regenerate cells to repair bone and tissue, and balance your metabolism and blood sugar levels. So it's not just about muscle growth, as important as that is, especially if we're being super dialed in and super consistent with our training. I always say, like, reward yourself from your training by doing these little habits at home that will yield really, really positive results. Because Vivian, Vince, I've seen you guys train in the gym. You throw the kitchen sink at it, which is awesome. You train really, really hard. And then you look at it and like, okay, well, if I'm working really, really hard in the gym, what can I do outside of the gym to make sure that I'm kind of giving my body and my neuromuscular system the best possible, I guess, opportunities to just grow and adapt and improve. So I think that's where it becomes really important as well. And ideally, we want between about 15 to 25% of deep sleep each night as well. So that's super important. And yeah, I guess it's just looking at like to maximize the time and effort you put into your workouts, having good sleep hygiene will positively impact your goals. Like there's no two ways about it. So it's all well and good for me to kind of talk about why it's important, but now I want to shift a little bit and talk about how you can see improvements. What are the little steps you can take? And I've jotted down kind of, I guess, the main ones that I think will yield results early on and help build into routine, but that by no means are these like the only ways to absolutely boost your REM and deep sleep. There's so many good ones out there. So you might hear a couple of them go, yeah, I've tried that. That kind of worked. Or, yep, I'm trying that at the moment. It's working, or whatever it might be. But there's plenty more we can go through as well. But yeah, I guess the main ones: avoid caffeine after midday. I know that's hard. I'm guilty. I don't always do that. But I think a lot of people, we need to realize that caffeine has a 6-hour half-life, which means 12 hours after consumption. Because it's a psychoactive drug, it can still be stimulating our bodies and our brains. So if you think about having a coffee at 1, 2, 3 p.m., there's a chance that it's still affecting our brains and our natural sleep circadian rhythms and our sleep hormones, at 9, 10, 11 p.m. when we're trying to wind down. And so when you think about trying to adopt really good sleep hygiene habits, it's going to be really hard if when you're trying to wind down, like if you mentioned going to bed at like 11 p.m. most nights, maybe you want to be going to sleep at 10, but if you're having that coffee at 3 p.m., suddenly at 10, you're wide awake. There's not much of you that wants to go to sleep. You still feel pretty alert and pretty switched on. It's going to make adjusting your circadian rhythm really, really challenging. So there's those little steps that'll make a big difference as well. That's number one. I think number two is a game changer, but it comes in all shapes and sizes, and it looks different for everyone. But it's calming activities, ideally 1 hour before bed. So calming activities, that can be things like reading, deep breathing, journaling, having a warm bath, specifically giving your brain an hour off technology before you go to sleep, purely because especially with technology, the blue light from all our electronic devices actually suppresses the release of melatonin, which is going to help us fall asleep. It's going to help us feel tired. So when we're on our phones, if we're watching Netflix, whatever it might be, as relaxing as it can be, because sometimes just winding down with a nice TV show at the end of the night does feel really relaxing. Physiologically, it's not setting us up for a really good sleep. That being said, there's actually some really easy ways to implement, I guess, habits to help with that. One of them being blue light filters on your electronic devices will make a really big difference. There's a couple you can use. I don't know if it's on Apple. I know it's on Android, it's called Twilight. Really good app for filtering out the blue light, and it sets to your location. So as the sun sets in whatever city you're in, it'll gradually fade on that blue light filter as well. If you do work on admin at night on your laptop, there's usually night modes on that you can go through the settings. Another one is Flux, f.lux. Same thing. It syncs up to your location, and then as the sun sets, it slowly filters in that blue light filter. That'll just help heaps with letting your brain naturally release melatonin and fall asleep. So that's option number 2. Option number, habit number 3 is magnesium, specifically maybe a topical cream just for better absorption before bed as well. 30 minutes to an hour before bed will yield some really positive results, mainly because it reduces cortisol, which helps with melatonin production or release as well. And it also activates the parasympathetic nervous system pathways, which is the rest and digest. We want to be winding down. We don't want to be in fight or flight. I think most of us are pretty guilty of being in fight or flight most days. We're at work, you're having coffee, you're stimulated. There's a lot of cortisol pumping through and adrenaline pumping through our bodies. It's probably not what we want to do before bed. We want to be doing really calming activities and setting our minds up to fall asleep and stay asleep.
What was the magnesium I take magnesium in a tablet form. What were you saying about the magnesium?
So the topical cream, we sell it here. It's just better absorbed into the bloodstream quicker. So you can put it in maybe 1 to 2 pumps of the cream that we have and rub it into your elbows, back of the knees, and the feet as well. Just absorbed a little bit quicker. So that's just an option as well. But there's heaps of different types of magnesium out there. So if you've already got one and it's working, by no means do you need to kind of switch it up. Just out of curiosity, Viv, how many of those habits that I just mentioned do you do consistently? So
I don't drink coffee after 12. I only have 2 coffees, so that's okay. I'm guilty of watching a series or going out to dinner or whatever, coming back and then winding down with just a bit of TV. But then when I get to my bed, I'll go on the phone and I'll look at my banking details, my shares, my shit, whatever. So I'm not doing a lot of work in bed, but I'm certainly not doing. I know if I read a book, I'll fall asleep. I don't understand why I don't do it though, because that's so stupid, right? Yeah. So probably I'm guilty of getting on the computer, looking at, things that are stimulating.
I think also you got to be kind to yourself and realize that we are creatures of habit. So that's just a routine. That's just a routine you've gotten into.
True.
I would say a potential fix could be trying to do that not in bed, still do that part of your kind of wind down routine if that's a routine you're used to, and the idea of just cutting it out completely doesn't feel sustainable. But see if you can do it not in bed, so that once you're ready to get in bed, phone's on flight mode. That's another one actually. I've got mates who, I don't know why, but they sleep with notifications on, which means I know it's beyond me, but it just means if someone messages them, suddenly they're going to wake up, check their phone. They don't have a blue light filter. It's a whole spiel. They're a long process to get them better with their sleep hygiene. But that being said, like I said, it's just about trying to find what habits and lifestyle adjustments are sustainable. The first time I started doing I did a 10-minute centered breathing routine before bed. It's not because I wanted to do it. It's because the chronic fatigue specialist said I had to do it. So I was super reluctant at first. And I remember that first 10 minutes feeling like about 4 hours. I got so bored so quickly. But I did it. I fell asleep, probably maybe slept 0.1% better. And then the next day I was like, all right, I'll do it again because the specialist said I need to do it every night. And then it was 1% better, and then it was 2% better. And then all of a sudden you build momentum with it and it starts becoming a habit. And I think I want to use that example to help reinforce it for all of you, because I think as much as I didn't enjoy the initial process of adjusting my routine and my sleep hygiene habits, it's gotten to the point now where, because I've done it for so long, probably coming up 5-6 years of trying to do that consistently. If I wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. and I notice that I'm tossing and turning, which is I think a pretty common scenario for a lot of us, as soon as I realize I can't get back to sleep, I'll just start counting my breaths 1 to 10. I'll do the meditation in my own head, which is literally just counting my breaths, just trying to focus on my breathing, not worried about the sessions I got to do tomorrow, or what I need to do grocery shopping, or whatever the life admin stresses that I'm just feeling. I don't know why your brain thinks of it at 2 or 3 a.m. It's not very productive, but just being able to say to myself, okay, I'm just going to count my breaths. I'm not too worried about those anxious thoughts right now. I'll deal with them tomorrow. But right now, I just want to count my breaths. And because I've been doing it for so long, within about 2 rounds, I'm falling back asleep. So that's like 2 minutes in, I'm asleep again. And so I kind of want to use that as an example for you guys to say that sometimes it does take a little bit of time with these habits, especially sleep hygiene. But once you build up consistency and build up routine with it, it does yield some incredible results. And then all of a sudden you're waking up refreshed. You're not having 4 or 5 coffees, you're having 1 or 2, sometimes 0. Your brain and your body functions so much better. So yeah, that's most of it. I did want to actually say lastly, for anyone who tracks their sleep with wearable devices, like an Aura Ring or a Whoop or anything like that, it'd be awesome to have a look at how much REM and deep sleep you're currently getting, and then compare your sleep data once you've adopted these sleep hygiene habits, because sometimes that data can be super, super valuable and super powerful. Because if you do these habits and you try to be consistent with it, maybe 2 to 3 weeks from now, you reflect on it and have a look at, oh, wow, my REM sleep and my deep sleep's gone from 12% on average each night. Now it's up to 17 or 18 or 22%. That's actually going to reinforce it and tell you that it is actually working. Alternatively, you might try these habits and they don't always work. Same process. You can kind of reflect and go, okay, it's not actually working. That's actually a really good time to reach out to me. We can go through kind of what you've tried, what's worked, what it hasn't worked, and we can just brainstorm from there. Because I do everyone's different, right? Everyone has different routines, different stresses, different lifestyles. I kind of love the puzzle piece of trying to figure out what's the best way for this specific person, rather, because what works for one person might not work for everyone else. So I kind of like that challenge. So hold me accountable as well. If you try these habits and it doesn't work, feel free to reach out, chat to me, Viv. I know you chat to me a lot on gym floor. I love it. Feel free to reach out and talk to me about it, so that we can kind of brainstorm and figure out ways to go from there. But that's my rant. I think I've covered a lot there. It's probably too much of me talking. Do you guys have any questions? Yes, Vince. Hold on. Unmute.
Sorry, one question I have, and you may know this because of your chronic fatigue and what you've gone through. How does napping work with supplementing that? Is it better to have a 10-hour sleep, or is it better to have a 10-hour overnight, or is it better to have a 2-hour nap and an 8-hour at night sleep?
Is it because for you, are you talking more from a sleep debt point of view, like trying to catch up on sleep, or just day?
I guess just structuring sleep.
Yeah. So
are you better off trying to get to bed early to get a bigger chunk, or go to bed at your normal time, and if you can nap if it works with your day, and especially on the weekends, obviously easier, but to do a 1 or 2 hour sleep during the day?
Yeah, so all the data around napping says, especially like you just said, if there's things get in the way of your normal sleep routine, and you can't get optimal amounts of sleep. In terms of napping, dragging it past an hour will actually interfere with your natural sleep cycle and schedule that following night, which means you're less likely to get as much REM and deep sleep. So it's about trying to find that balance where obviously some days you might just, for whatever reason, maybe it's, you know, during summer, it's super hot, you don't sleep well, you get 3 hours or 4 hours and you know you need like 7 or 8. Trying to use that, like, I'd say 30 to 45 minute window for a nap. You might initially be like, I'm used to a 2-hour nap. I don't feel anywhere near as refreshed from that. But it just means that following night, you're going to optimize the amount of REM and deep sleep you're going to get because you're not going to cut into that natural sleep cycle. The weekend is a really good one to touch on as well, because I think a lot of people think in terms of sleep debt that, oh, like I'm getting 4 or 5 hours every night, Monday to Friday. I know I need about 8 hours. I'll just sleep 12 hours on a Friday night, and I'll sleep 12 hours on a Saturday night, and then I'll be good for the rest of the next week. It's kind of true and it's kind of not true. So obviously it's always great to be able to catch up on that sleep debt. But all the studies have found that, you know, if let's say you get an extra 4 or 5 hours each Friday night and Saturday night, you've cut into your sleep debt, but you haven't eliminated it. So it actually means the following week, that Monday through Friday, as hard as it is, you've got to try prioritize getting an extra 30 minutes to an hour each night, so that by that weekend, that following weekend, you've completely caught up on that sleep debt. Now, it's super easy for me to say that because I know, like, it's a lot easier to say that than actually apply it. Because for a lot of us, I think for a lot of us, during that following week, might not have the time and availability to just magically catch up on sleep. But yeah, that's kind of the data in terms of napping and sleep debt. That's kind of where it's at the moment. But good question. I like it. Any other questions from anyone else?
Yeah, I have one. I know we've spoken about this on the gym floor, Ollie, but with the REM percentage and the deep sleep percentage, was deep sleep about 20% that we want to be aiming for? Can you just talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So in terms of your like deep sleep, you want to be aiming for like the optimal range. They say it's varied, but it's usually between 15 and 25%. I would say you always want to be getting closer to that 25. Once again, though, like just saying that doesn't necessarily hold much value. Understanding that if you're at like 15, 16% and you want to get to 25, that's when those kind of habits that we talk about come into play. Making sure that you're doing a calming activity before bed, blue light filters, magnesium before bed, all those sorts of things. Another quick one as well, actually, that I forgot to touch on, is what you call like a central nervous system reboot, that you could do it like between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. And that could look like a 5 to 10 minute centered breathing routine, light stretching routine, something like that, at that 2 to 4, anytime between 2 or 4 p.m., just so that your nervous system, instead of being in fight or flight all day, just gets a little dip back into parasympathetic, back into rest and digest. And then that'll actually have a really positive cascading effect for the sleep that night. And it'll help with the sleep quality as well. But yeah, another good question. Viv, wrap it up.
Questions? You know, the Apple app, the Heart app, it says average REM, core and deep. So when you say deep, are you talking about REM or
great question. So deep is different to REM.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know which one it is that you're saying we need to.
So for the in terms of like the fat loss and the muscle growth, that's primarily deep sleep. So deep sleep's that physical side of things, that physical recovery, muscle tissue repair, muscle growth, and then REM is looking more at the cognitive function as well, of like helping your brain flush out toxins and get that refreshing sleep. So they both play a really, important role. Specifically, the body comp stuff relates to deep sleep, so fat loss, muscle growth. But REM, you also want to be aiming for. I mean, once again, the data is a bit varied because they study it so extensively, but it's between, percentage wise, similar, 20-25%, but you also want, it's on average 90 minutes to 2 hours a night of REM or deep sleep. REM, sorry, just REM.
Yeah, and then the rest is under average core, which is
Ollie, just because I've got an iPhone as well. Core
I'm trying to understand
core's light sleep.
Yeah,
so
gotcha.
Core's light sleep. Apple just calls core light sleep core.
Good to know.
Right.
I'm not an Apple guy, unfortunately. So.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
No stress.
Thanks, Vince. I mean, yeah, it gets a bit confusing. So I don't get much deep sleep. I get an okay amount of REM sleep. So that makes a bit of sense.
Also, having said that, I do use the Pillow app, and what the Apple app shows compared to the Pillow app is significantly different. So I wouldn't rely on the Apple app as much as it shows. Yeah, I can show you both. They're significantly different.
So which one do you prefer for detail?
I think the Pillow app is far more accurate.
That'll link in with your Apple Watch?
Correct.
Pillow. It's called Pillow.
Yeah, there's heaps of them, but that's the one Ethan put me onto, and it's been pretty good.
Pillow app. All right, cool.
It's also I used to have a Whoop, and I used to wear my Samsung on one and my Whoop on the other to compare the data. And the Samsung one wasn't as accurate either. So, you take it with a grain of salt. It's when you look at the studies on how to actually measure REM sleep specifically as well, unless you're using like a specific tool to measure the rapid eye movement, it's never going to be as accurate. So yeah, it's hard to kind of always go off the Apple data or the whatever wearable device you have. I know if my Samsung one, if it moves at all, there'll be no data for maybe 10 minutes. And it sometimes just tries to guess what the actual data will be. So yeah, it's not always going to be 100% accurate. But it will help, especially as an average. If you're looking at what your REM and deep sleep is currently doing, might not be as accurate, but if it's on average, deep sleep is 12%, and then you do these habits for a month and you see what it's at, and if it's increased, the averages have still increased. It might not be as accurate, but at least average to average, week to week, it's still getting better.
Good.
But awesome, good questions. Keeping me on my toes. I like it. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions, yell out. Or is that have we answered it all? We've nailed it.
Oh, good.
Nailed sleep.
I've got one more.
Yeah.
I think just with the blue light filters, it's something I need to put on my phone. There's also like those random glasses that I see people wearing all the time. I haven't done that much research or like reading into any of that, but what do you recommend around all that sort of stuff? Is the phone stuff okay?
The blue light filters, so a really good way to look at it is if you use those programs that I recommended, and then if you turn the filter off, so you're looking at your screen, it's quite red because there's no blue light coming through. And then if you turn it off and all the blue light comes through, and then you put on those glasses, they don't filter it anywhere near as much. They make it a little tinge of yellow, similar to like when you do the night mode on Samsung or iPhone. Like it does kind of make it just that kind of yellowy tinge or orange tinge, but it doesn't filter it anywhere near as much. So I definitely lean more towards like the actual plugins for your computer or laptop as a blue light filter, if that's something you do before bed, if you're using technology. Yeah, definitely, rather than the glasses. They just don't filter it anywhere near as much. It's good little social media marketing.
I actually get it applied to my lenses as well.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting in photos, just when I'm out and about, sometimes it's on the angle and you get the blue coming out from my glasses in photos, which is so frustrating. But I don't know how accurate or how good it is. And it's just they say to put it on when you're choosing what lenses to get. So I was like, yeah, why not? Yeah.
There you go. But no, that's pretty much it. That's everything I've planned for today. Thank you very much for
Thank
jumping.
you. Awesome.
Like I said, I'm very curious about how you guys go with these habits. Feel free. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you come up to me in a couple of weeks and say, hey, I tried a few of them, they're not quite working. Then we can brainstorm and figure out better ways to implement change.